Welcome, welcome. This is another update on Calexit. What's going on? What are people talking about? And ultimately the question of how close is a Calexit? Now, my name is Marcus Ruiz-Evans. I founded the Calexit movement in 2012 with the book California's Next Century 2.0. And then there was the article by Tom Elias, a famous columnist who brought about the recall election. And there was an article on my book in 2013 in LA Daily News. And that was the first article about California separation, as we call it now. We avoid the SECEDE word and go with separation. So I kind of know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've interviewed more people, done more interviews, been around, talked to more theorists and theorized myself than anyone else out there. And I want to cover why I think an update is due now. A lot of things are going on. We're going to cover the incredible news. And when you watch this, you're going to understand how close Calexit is to happening in one blow. Before we do that, we do have to pay the bills. This is what it's all about. California independence. There are many ways to go for this. We're pushing promotion and ballot initiatives and direct lobbying. Other people do other things. Whatever you do to work towards this goal, you're in the movement. No one owns the term Calexit. It belongs to everyone. Now, we just launched a PAC. This is the first PAC dedicated to California separation. We had some experts who've done PAC websites develop it for us, and it's now being led by J.J. Ames, who has 4 decades of experience working with the federal government. He teaches political science classes, and he also ran 67 campaigns, and he's taken all of the master's level classes in PAC management from George Washington in Washington, D.C. Please donate to the PAC. You can go to calexitpac.org and you can donate now. This is the first PAC dedicated to Calexit. This is a major move for Calexit. We're actually moving into the political field and doing the correct things. Also, check us out on the website, calexitnow.org. This is where you can contact us. You can sign the petition. You can get more information. You can get the petition, and you can donate. We need your help. You can also go to calexitnow.org/donate. Donate to the Calexit Victory Fund. Money's important. It helps us get things done. And why should you donate? Now, we're going to get into the show, but I need to cover these basics first. The goal of Calexit now is to do lobbying, promotion, and basically cause discussion. So what some of our accomplishments are to develop a political action committee led by a political science professor with many years of experience, who was a former FEMA head speechwriter. We brought on a high-level Democrat to publicly be part of Calexit and help us with our lobbying efforts. That's Dr. Kathleen Harmon. We've also started directly lobbying office holders in Sacramento, both Assembly and Senate, to propose a blue ribbon panel on California separation. We think that's the easiest way to achieve Calexit. We've also hired a professional CEO who's ran 6 publicly traded companies, CFO, publicist, and political director, who I just named earlier. Also created a cryptocurrency with a world-leading expert in Bitcoin. Sent out about 1 million text messages to Californians who never heard about Calexit, 300,000 emails. And we also brought on highly respected experts in medicine and film production as industry advisors. Some of our plans for the future will be a million influencer event where we're going to have 50 influencers on one night streaming with each other, about 50 million views in total, all talking about Calexit. Streaming and politics is very new. There is a tour called the Un-F America Tour that was launched by the Democrats, and it is brand spanking new. So this is cutting edge stuff, never been done really in politics, and we're going to do it for Calexit. Also a film fest, where we're going to have people make Calexit films, have a film festival, and then the winning film is shown in movie theaters around everywhere. We will also be announcing politicians we lobbied have approved of a blue ribbon panel on Calexit. Also announcing Calexit will be co-campaigning with certain Democrats as they run for office in California. They may not support Calexit, but they're willing to be seen with us. We'll have an online petition of 1 million signatures of Californians backing Calexit. Also, the Miss Cali Nation contest, the California-wide tour with stops in San Diego, LA, SF, the Bay Area, and Sacramento. Cali Nation token. exploratory future currency project. Develop panels on experts for each major California industry to advise on legislation California can lobby for, or Calexit can. As I've said, we've already done medicine and film. We're looking for every industry. Develop a 100-member social media influencer team. Lobby to have a California State University official course. University offer an official course for credit on the reasons behind California independence. And petition to have 500 California professors sign a pledge to join a blue ribbon panel if one is called. Now, that idea is just proposed. It's not adopted. It's under review. But I wanted you to be able to see that what we're trying to do is promotion. We're trying to do lobbying. We do the petition, but we do so much more. We want to get the discussion going. We want people to be talking about it in government and at the public level and at the intellectual level and mass media. Join us, donate. We need your help. Now, if you can't donate, not a problem. We need people that can host house parties where you would agree that we could come to your house and we could talk about Calexit with anybody in the area. We also need social media influencers, help with people to help spread the message. And finally, please sign the Calexit petition. This petition helps us gain publicity. These are all the things we've done and what we're planning to do. Here's our website where you can find out more about us. Help us achieve these goals. No one is out there doing this. And again, if you can't donate, it's important, but we need help with house parties, social media, signing the petition, and getting the word out. And you can help with all those. So I know that was a little bit of a long run-up. Apologies. Here's what today's show is going to be about. Now, this is the news and potatoes. I mean, meat and potatoes. We have an Instagram post I'm going to show you that proves that Republicans will let California leave. We also have a Fox News television talking moment where it also showed that Republicans don't know that California is a donor state, and they actually think they subsidize us. So they will not have a problem with us leaving because of money. We're also posting that liberals have now lost faith in the elections. Governor Newsom showed that. We also have a video collection of how liberals have lost faith in their country, and they recognize this Trump is a reflection of the majority of America. We're also going to show you some elected officials' speech after Trump sent the Marines in here to California and ordered the National Guard against us and against our government's wishes and against a domestic protest. We'll also be showing you New York Times interviews experts in totalitarianism who said they're now going to flee America because it's clear America's broken. Then we're also going to show you Oregon, Washington, and California have a pact on healthcare and firefighting. And a top policy magazine, Atlantic, recognizes the point of Calexit. What this does is prove that California's government is fully aware of the need to separate. California government recognizes it can't depend on the federal government in multiple areas. Now, I know that seems like a lot, but I wanted you to see where we're going. I've been at this 12 years, and I've seen the major arguments that people had against Calexit in 2012, 2014, 2015, 2017, 2019, 2020, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So this is the most up-to-date understanding of where we are and the probability for Calexit. And I wanted you to see what's going on with these points because I like to set everything up and then just plow through the material quickly. And of course, as I always do, you're going to see the source and the context will be broken up for you to understand. But here's where we're going. And what you're going to find out is that all the arguments against Calexit, they're basically all gone. There's nothing really stopping a Calexit now. So let's go to the first one. Kick California out. Donald Trump announces California as Canada's 11th province. This is kind of a joke. It's on Instagram. He's going to announce it and turning it into some bastion of horribleness, failed liberal policies, and he wants to give it over to Canada. So it's a big joke. It had about 78,000 likes. 78,000 likes. And here's a selection of some of the comments. Anna Forgion, R. Will, 98221, Garcia, Victor Carl Edwards, Westall, Brad Grosh, Decepticon, Tromaine, Hector Fictani, All of them are saying, awesome idea, get rid of California. So I would argue these are conservatives who saw an Instagram post that was really joking. And it's, what do they call it? AI. It's a generated voice of Donald Trump saying, I want to get California out. So that's just a screenshot, but it's actually a video. 78,000 likes. And everybody's saying, go ahead and do it. Republicans hate us, and they would be just fine with kicking us out. Don't be surprised. I always remind people, half of Republicans in America view you as not American. So California, half the Republican Party views you as not American. So are you really surprised when you see this? Okay, now let's go to this. Gutfeld on September 15th, he talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for a national divorce. This is Greg Gutfeld, and he does a show, the Gutfeld Show on Fox News. Now, on this show, there's the date, September 15th, Gutfeld, MTG calls for a peaceful national divorce. They have a conversation. Two of the conservatives mentioned California by name. Think about that. Two of the conservatives mentioned California by name. Marjorie Taylor Greene did not mention California when she said, let's have a national divorce. Not in her tweet at all. It was the conservatives on the show who on their own mentioned California. They didn't mention any other state, maybe New York, but they mentioned California a couple times, and it was different members. One guy said, what about California? Another guy said, California, yeah, they're crazy. So what we have is Fox News talks about national divorce. Immediately, the number one contender they talk about is California. And Dave Landau, the comedian, to Greg Gutfeld right there. So it's tough to say, and I do feel like we're divorced because they already got half of my money. There he is. You guys can have California. We'll take the rest. And then Gutfeld agreeing, yeah, California's crazy. Now, they said they didn't want it to go, but mostly because it's beautiful, and that's the point. They had an entire discussion about separation. Multiple Fox News conservatives said California. And then they said, oh, you know, because they already take our money. And then they all laughed about it. Not one person on the show said California is the world's fourth largest economy, a donor state, and will lose money. In fact, they all laughed when the comedian said they already take our money, which is something we've been saying here in Calexit. Republicans don't know that California supports them. They think it's the total opposite. They think that they support California. A lot of people don't get this. Remember, there was a congressional hearing where the Republican Party, the last year of Donald Trump's first presidency, said California is a donor state in Congress. Here they are talking about national divorce. They immediately mention California and say, oh, yeah, they already take all our money. And then everybody laughs about it. Not one person says anything in opposition. So the point of that is that we've constantly been told, okay, well, let's say you want to go, California. Well, the Republicans will never let you go. Not true, as we've said. Oh, and the Republicans will never let you go because you have so much money and they'll realize that they will lose it. Actually, not true. These things both happened very recently. This isn't a year ago. This is like a week or two ago. They hate us. They want us to go. They don't know that we subsidize them. They literally know the opposite. Okay? All right, now let's go to this. This is from We're Experts in Fascism. We're Leaving the United States, New York Times, May 18th. These are experts on totalitarianism. I believe they're out of Yale University, one of the top, Yale or Harvard or Princeton. That's Marcy Shore. She's a professor of history. And she says the lesson on 1933 is that you get out sooner than later. And I'm a historian of totalitarianism. Here's another thing she said. My colleagues and friends, they're walking around and saying, we have checks and balances. So let's inhale checks and balances and exhale. And I thought, my God, we're like the people on the Titanic saying our ship can't sink. That is exactly what J.J. Ames, our new political director, has said. He said people are walking around saying this can never happen. Collapse can never happen. Why? Because this is America. It could never happen. This is America. I've been personally using the motif of we're on a yacht and it's sinking. And then I turn to somebody and say, can we talk about a life raft? And they insult me for even wanting to have the discussion. Now we go to a New York Times professor who says, it's a ship that's sinking And experts think this can't happen simply because they go, oh, it's America. That's literally what JJ said. JJ's worked in the DC for 4 decades. He said since 2015, it became obvious to him that America's falling apart. And Calexit needed to happen. And you go, why? Well, I've seen the federal government. It's not working. The ship is sinking. There's people who aren't ready to accept that conclusion. That's what JJ's been saying. Here's a New York Times author, expert being interviewed by the New York Times saying literally the same thing. I've been using the motif of the sinking ship. She's using literally the same thing. I've also been using the Crystal Knox speech for African-American and Latino audiences here in California. It also goes for protesters. And I would point out Crystal Knox in 1933 was the year that Jews decided they needed to get out or they stayed and died. So I just found it interesting that here's a professor interviewed by the New York Times, one of the top professors in totalitarianism. She uses the exact same sinking ship mythology. She uses the exact same reference to 1933 Kristallnacht period. And she uses the exact same reference that our political director has been saying, which is people can't believe it's going to happen simply because this is America. And they're crazy for doing that. That's what she's saying. So if you're looking around and going, this could never happen, it's America. Here's one of the smartest educated people being interviewed by one of the smartest newspapers saying, everybody who says that is stupid, like the people on the Titanic. You remember that movie, The Titanic? And it was sinking, and then the band played music, and people kept drinking champagne. Like, yeah, that's what humans do. So the experts who are saying secession can never happen, they're the people on the Titanic. We've seen this before, where rational people act crazy when it's obvious it's not working. No, I can't believe that. So New York Times person back it up. Now, let's go to here. This is September 24th. Gavin Newsom went to the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The article is called, I Feel We Will Not Have an Election in 2028. Donald Trump is trying to rig the midterm elections, and now we fear that we will not have an election in 2028. So Texas decided to do gerrymandering right before midterms. Donald Trump said that he wanted 5 more seats in the House so he could control the House. And then immediately Texas said, let's gerrymander. Governor Newsom said, if you do that, we're going to do that. And we'll kick out 5 Republicans, as after Texas decided that they would kick out 5 Dems. Well, it looks like conservatives didn't really believe him. And then when he announced it, they went mad, crazy. How could you do that? Breakdown of American norms. But here's the thing. Texas, the president of America said, I want 5 more seats in the House. And then a state decided to gerrymander right before midterms to kick out members of the other House. That's never happened before. So then California said, we'll do the same thing. Now, here's the thing. Within just a few weeks, liberals went from, okay, Trump got reelected, maybe we'll wait for the next election, to they don't know if there's going to be a future election, right? They're doubting midterms will happen. They're doubting 2028 is happening. Newsom's saying this. He's not the only one. I've heard this from other people. Will midterms even happen? Should we even participate because the thing's going to be rigged? Should we even participate in the election in 2028, or will it be rigged? Trump's already saying Trump 2028, like he's going to rig it. And he laughs about it, and none of the conservatives say anything. So we have liberals now saying maybe elections in America don't matter anymore. And we have experts in America saying, yeah, this ship is sinking. That might be why the Atlantic magazine, the most respected policy discussion place in America, covers international policy, high-level policy, the highest level policy discussion. And they said this on June 9th, David Graham, Trump versus California. If California is not getting disaster aid, because Trump said he wasn't sure he was going to give disaster aid after the Palisades and Eaton fire to California because he wasn't sure he liked us. And then he sent the Marine Corps active duty combat trained troops out of 29 Palms, which is the MARSOC training grounds where they train to go fight people like the Republican Guard or Chinese elite soldiers, was sent to deal with the domestic protest. And then he sent the National Guard against Californians and against the will of the governor and all the people here. If California is not getting disaster aid, but is getting hostile deployment of federal troops, Californians might find it harder to see what's in it for them. So, and it's also talking about how California is a donor state. So the Atlantic magazine is basically saying you had a natural disaster. People were dead and burned on the ground, Eaton, Palisades. Trump says, I don't know if I want to help. I'm not sure I like you. That's horrible. Never happened before in American history, ever. Then we have protests. And he goes, oh, I know how I'll handle it. I'll send combat troops in against it. And I'll have the National Guard deployed against the will of the people there. Marines have never been sent in against the domestic protests. I think you got to go to the Civil War or 1812. And the last time the federal government has said we're sending the National Guard against your will was, I believe, with desegregation in 1954. So you're looking at actions that have never happened in American history ever, multiple of them, and something that hasn't happened in 70 years. And here's the Atlantic magazine, the top magazine for policy, saying, if you can't get disaster assistance and you get troops sent on domestic protests, maybe there's no point in you being part of America. No high-level policy magazine has ever straight up said Calexit's a good idea for California. Never happened before, ever. Now things are so bad, well, highest level policy magazine is saying something that no high-level policy magazine has ever said. This is so god-awful. I don't know why California would want to be part of America anymore. The way Trump treats them is so horrible. No reasonable people would say, let's stay. Maybe that's why this happened. California has announced that they're going to do an alliance with Oregon and Washington. They're not going to listen to the federal government on health or the CDC. They're going to form their own health alliance. And this was recognized by some as secession. So California's health alliance with Oregon and another state isn't just that. They're also going to develop their own fire prevention and fire protection service. So they're not going to rely on the federal government for health advice, and they're not going to rely on the federal government for firefighting. So that's two different areas where the California government said, basically, we're no longer going to rely on the federal government, and we're going to do our own thing with the compact of states. That's basically secession. It's called nullification. Not exactly, but right before the Civil War, the South tried to nullify certain laws they didn't like and say, we'll do our own thing. All historians call that the lead up to secession. So secession's, I want to leave. Nullification is, I'm not leaving. I'm just not going to do what you say, even though I'm obligated to. Here you go. I'm not going to follow your orders on healthcare. And we're not going to follow your orders on healthcare or forest firing. Because we just decided we don't want to follow them anymore. That's nullification. It's what the South did right before they said full-blown secession. Maybe because Trump did things like this. And like this. You're going to cut off disaster aid. You're going to send troops on us. You're going to rig elections so they don't even matter. And then to top it off, Trump sent troops outside the governor's press conference. So the governor was meeting at a press conference to have a meeting. It wasn't a Home Depot lot where you would expect a lot of undocumented. It was high-level policy discussion with high-level policy people. And Trump just sent in a bunch of ICE agents masked with guns to surround it. The people said that was intimidation. That was the president of America sending troops to surround the governor of California to intimidate him. Right. Like they sent the Marines in. Right. Which is what they're complaining about. Well, Newsom has called people out and said maybe the election isn't going to happen. He's also gone further. This shocked me. I guess not a lot of other people, but people say, well, it's a joke. True, but the governor's threatening to kick out people who don't back California values. I've never seen anybody say that outside the Calexit movement. In the Calexit movement, we would talk about, wouldn't it be great if we could kick out MAGA people, who are truly unrepentant and don't share any California values like Stephen Miller. And now for the first time I've ever seen a California official, yes, joking, but has suggested, why don't we kick out people that don't support California values? What they're talking about is Stephen Miller, who is from California, unfortunately. Stephen Miller is a white supremacist, and he is very much in the Trump White House. So Stephen Miller said that Gavin Newsom is a bad person because he wants to move masks from ICE agents. And it's another act of insurrection against the United States and its sovereign people. That's what this white supremacist has said. And then Newsom lashes out and says, it's an attempt to replace the sovereignty of the people with autocracy. So they've gotten into a shouting match, but he said, maybe you should leave because you don't support California values. And here's what happened. I mean, when the National Guard was sent in against the domestic protest, apparently, according to this Los Angeles Times article, July 20th, that's what changed Newsom. He was like, hold on, you're sending troops in against our people? We can't work with you. So now we have to fight you. So apparently, according to LA Times, it was when Trump sent in hostile deployments of troops. Oh, yeah? Okay, well, then it's open season on you guys. I'm calling out people and saying, get the hell out of California. And just to make sure, if you watched the Charlie Kirk Memorial just a few days ago, I recommend you watch this video, Former White Supremacist Response to Stephen Miller, Life Take 2 on September 23rd. She breaks down how Stephen Miller's entire speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial is one massive white supremacist speech. She's not the only one. Apparently, that speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial just a few days by Stephen Miller plagiarized Joseph Goebbels. Stephen Miller's the guy who's saying California's out of control. We're going to come and get you if you didn't mourn Charlie Death's assassination. And California's out of control with taking masks away from ICE agents, and it's an insurrectionist place. Watch how his entire speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, by the way, no Republicans are talking about this, and no Republicans are complaining. No complaints. White supremacist speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, not a word from the Republican Party. Nothing. Documented. And this is just a few days ago. And they're calling us the bad guys. Right. Well, here's the other thing that no one's complaining about on the Republican side. Jesse Waters went on TV and said we need to avenge Charlie Kirk's death, and this means war. No criticism from Republicans. Oh, and he was not forced to be taken down. Jimmy Kimmel said it looks like the Republicans are trying to frame the assassination of Kirk on a left-wing person when we all know it's somebody on the right. He was removed. Now, he got to come back, but we didn't know that initially. He was removed. Jesse Waters gets to say this means war and we need to avenge his death. No context provided. Nothing happens to him. So Kimmel didn't say anything violent or suggesting violence. He gave his take, which I thought was pretty accurate, and they removed him. This guy says war and retaliation. What do you think that means? Language like this is what they said is calling fire in a place where a bunch of civilians. You can't do it. So here's what they get to do. We're an insurrectionist place that hates America. Time for retaliation and war. Nobody gets taken down. But you say it looks like the right is trying to pin the death of Charlie Kirk on the left before we even know who the shooter is. You get removed. Okay. All right. Now here's another one. Oklahoma proposes America First test for teachers from New York and California, just to show you how much hate against California. There's now a campaign in Oklahoma that teachers only from these two states have to pass a values test. That's right. If you're an American citizen, not good enough. If you go to Oklahoma and you want to teach and you're from California, you have to show that you get Oklahoma values and you're not against them. This only applies to Californians and New Yorkers. So if you come from 48 other states, they don't ask, just California. So just Californians have to prove we're not radical liberals. Why can't we have if you don't support California values, you don't get a work here test? Imagine that. This is secession happening. Okay, folks, this is secession happening. This is secession happening. This is secession happening. Okay, that's what they're doing. Now, remember when he talked about the Marines came in against Californians? Okay. Well, apparently that pissed off a lot of people. So here's the conference, California lawmakers. This is basically all the Democrats gathered in Sacramento, and this was the first press conference they did in response to the Marines being sent in against California. That's June 9th, ABC 10. Now at 8:25, you can see, actually, let me show you this one. So the thing was held by Tina McKinnon. And by the way, Tina McKinnon was a boss. She ran this show. Tina McKinnon was a boss, and she was fierce, and she was ready to fight for California. If anything happened to NEWSOM, that lady could step up and start swinging within a millisecond. I mean it. She's ready to fight for California. Now, she said at 2 minutes and 42 seconds in, this federal government, they're not like us. That's a reference to the Kendrick Lamar song. Kendrick Lamar song, he's from California, famous California rapper. He's basically the Tupac of our times. We haven't had anybody that good or eloquent since Tupac. And he wrote a song saying, they're not like us, meaning, those people, they're not like us. Now, Trump sends in the Marines, and she says, this federal government, they're not like us. So here's California elected officials saying, this country, this government is not like California. Tina McKinnon, Assembly Member, District 61. There's a picture of her. Now, she was also supported by Lola Smallwood Cuevas. Orale. She's a state senator, and she said at 8 minutes and 25 seconds in, aligning with other speakers, and there's Tina McKinnon right next to her. They are not like us. That's the first time elected officials have gone on TV and said, this is America. They're not really us. NEWSOM has criticized Trump. You might see Democrats criticize the Republicans and criticize MAGA and Trump for policies and say this is un-American. But you haven't really seen somebody say, you know what, this country and where they're going from, that's not us. Now we do. Now we have elected officials saying that. And now we have elected officials saying, don't have any faith in elections in the future. So we've shown that Republicans will let California leave with the Instagram post. We've also shown that Republicans are not worried about a loss of money with Calexit. Those were two major arguments against Calexit. You can't Calexit because the Republicans will never let you go. And the moment they realize all the money, they will never let you go. Well, we have two examples of Republicans not caring about that. Also, liberals have lost faith in the next election. When a group of people loses faith in elections, that's the step right before collapse. And because of gerrymandering from Texas, it looks like liberals are now doubting if midterms even count or if any future elections count. That's a sign of collapse. Now, we had elected officials' speech after Trump sent in the Marines, and we have the New York Times interviews experts in totalitarianism. Liberals recognize that America is now broken. You have California Assembly and Senate members saying they're not like us. You have the Atlantic magazine saying it's a good idea for California to consider why be part of America. This is radically changed language from high-level sources of authority. You've never had top policy magazines recommend Calexit. You've never had elected officials say America is fundamentally not like us. They would have criticized Trump. They would have criticized Trump voters, but they wouldn't have said it that way. So now we're starting to see liberals recognize that, well, the country's broken. You also saw the experts from the New York Times saying country's broken. So now all liberals are getting it. Finally, well, not finally. Then we have Oregon, Washington, and the California Pact on Healthcare and Firefighting. And the New York and the Atlantic magazine recognizes Calexit. That proves that the California government and other liberals recognize you can't count on the federal government for services anymore. So the Republicans will let us leave. The Republicans don't know enough about California money to be upset about it. The liberals now believe the system is broken and isn't going to work and it's falling apart. And they believe that they need to take steps to replace federal government bureaucracy. So Republicans will let us go. Money won't stop them. They hate us. They want us to go. They're ruining the country. There's no faith in the system, no faith in elections, no faith in the future. And we have to, literally, the California government is now taking steps to replace federal infrastructure. This is like when West Rome broke from East Rome and you had the Byzantine Empire. It wasn't a, oh, we're leaving you. It was just a slowly cell separation. Now, here's the last thing I want to show you. Liberals recognize America's not broken. Now, this came after the election of Trump. I'm going to show you a series of slides, and it's going to walk you through it. Now, we have this video up for everybody. Starts with 4 slides. 2016, first election, Donald Trump. Calexit movement said that Trump did represent America. We pointed out that Hillary won the popular vote by California margin. meaning that outside of California, a majority of Americans did vote for Donald Trump. Next slide. Nobody in California wanted to hear that. They said he was a fluke or foreign government or Russia. Now, when Trump got reelected in 2024, then the rest of California liberals were where Calexit alone was. In 2016, we said, this is Trump's America. The rest of California said, no, it's not. In 2024, we said, this is Trump's America. And finally, liberals were willing to agree with us. This is Trump's America. And that's key. You're not going to be okay with leaving America if you fundamentally think it's still your country. But if you think America is actually a country full of weird people you don't recognize and you don't know who these people are and you don't feel an affinity or kinsmanship, as they would call it in sociological terms with them, well, that's the step before separation. There's a book, Making Frenchmen, Peasants into Frenchmen. The idea of a French nation had to be built into people's minds. So they had a fraternity of identity that they would go, I recognize you as a Frenchman. When you have a breakdown of that, and you go, well, I don't recognize you as a Frenchman. I see you as a Breton. That's where secession happens. And so we're starting to see, hey, Trump doesn't represent America 2016, 2024. Oh my God, he got elected again. And this is the thing. This is exactly what we heard in Calexit. People call, I thought 1,000 phone calls in 2024, emails, text messages, whatever. Mark, I saw you in 2016, 2017. I thought it was wild. I thought it was a cool idea, but I thought, we'll fix it. And then he got reelected. So we've had a flush of new members like J.J. Ames, who's worked in D.C. for decades, and Xavier Mitchell, who's a CEO of 6 different publicly traded companies, or heads in medicine, or heads in film production, or former President Jimmy Carter administration officials. They didn't come around 2016, 2017. They came around 2024. And they all said the same thing. Thought this was wild, but then he was re-elected. And I realized this is not my country. This is Trump's America. They like this guy. They elected him twice, and they elected him with a popular vote on the second time after January 6th. So finally, liberals were willing to recognize this. Let me show you a few slides. He's pointing out how Trump did all those horrible things, and it just didn't seem to matter. People didn't care about all the horrible stuff he did. Here's another one saying it seems like Trump was going to win no matter what liberals did, like the popularity was so extreme. Here's another one. Liberals fear about what kind of country they're living in. How do they wrap their minds around the fact that this is a country that they love? Like, who are these people is basically what these people were talking about. And what the hell kind of country are we living in? Here's the same thing. It leads me to bet that this is not who we are. And actually, this is Donald Trump's America. Here's another one. This country decided that, you know what? These are our values. Here's another one. Donald Trump held up a mirror to this country, and it might be a good time for it to take a hard look. And here you go. Last time it felt like a fluke. This time America knew exactly what they were getting, and they went hard for it. So all these people are exasperated at what kind of country is this? Who are these people? I didn't recognize this. I didn't think these people were my country. And now they recognize, yeah, this is your country. This is Trump's America. Right? And it's not just talking heads. A lot of people, regular people, went to Instagram and said, whatever, I don't know what's going on, but I can't be part of it. So Republicans will let CA leave. Republicans don't know about a money loss. Liberals have now lost faith in future elections. Liberals have lost faith that this is their country. They recognize this is Trump's America. Liberals recognize America is now broken. And the California government is recognizing, and other policy agencies, that the California government needs to do its own thing immediately. So that is the status of where we're at and the status of Calexit. And this is key because until 2024, none of these had happened. When we were in 2016, it took us 2016 to 2020 for people to recognize that you could have a vote for independence and that California could survive as a nation. So people would joke, California can't be a nation. Now no one jokes about that. Everyone recognizes California could be a nation. But it stopped there with, they'll never let you go. Yeah, but the money. Yeah, but the next election. Yeah, but we could win it. And yeah, but hold on. What politicians are backing you? Now, since 2024, things have all fallen apart. So it was Republicans won't vote for us. Republicans will stop with the money. Liberals still believe in the system and they'll vote in the next election. Government officials aren't sure this is true and they don't back this in any way. Government officials in California all know about this and are already doing it. Liberals have no faith in the election. Liberals have no faith that this is their country. And Republicans have shown that they'll let us go because they hate us. Everything's lining up for Calexit. This is the best time for California separation. None of these conditions, except for one, existed before 2024. Only the fact that California could survive as a nation and was essentially a understanding of that amongst its people already. That is the only thing we really got through in the Calexit movement from 2016 through 2022. In 2024 to 2025, just the last few months, really 2025, last 3 to 6 months, multiple stumbling blocks against Calexit have all fallen away. And now there's nothing to stop people backing it. Thank you. We'll have another update soon. You may be interested in our upcoming show, the possibility of a second civil war in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. We'll see you soon. Thank you.